So, in all your time, going around and talking to people, and you don't have to talk badly about anybody, but are there any groups that take the information that you give them, maybe take it a little more negatively than other groups? Like, is it harder to get through to certain groups than other groups that you speak to?
When I started speaking about PrEP about 6 years ago, after the FDA approval, again, I was often just met with that, like, you're a fucking alien look.
Yeah.
But I knew how to walk into a room of providers, share the story. First of all, my story about how I came to understand about PrEP, all the people we've lost, all the people that would still be alive if we had had PrEP before. And then just walk them through the science, walk them through the studies, walk them through the data, which shows how well PrEP works. Most people, I'd say 99% of the people who I've encountered on this crazy road are really amenable to facts and data and research and science and integrating that into old core beliefs and saying, okay, things are changing, science is changing, medicine is changing. I'm willing to really look at this with factual, rational scrutiny. And most people I've met are able and willing to do that. Okay. Is there an organization that won't do that? There is a person who runs a large worldwide organization who is anti-science, who wasn't just against PrEP, he was also against vaccine research. So I'm not going to name names, but anyone who
let's not
is
name
aware
names
of the
here.
PrEP issues and the conflicts is well aware that there's only one organization that's anti-science on this.
We're a little show here. So I'm sorry to cut you off. We're a little show here, and we're not trying to get sued.
Yeah, I know.
So
the
don't
facts
sue
are out
us,
there.
people.
It's all been in public.
Yeah.
The ads, the smear campaigns, they're all in public. But more and more as time goes by and as more people understand PrEP, it's just like this really weird anti-science thing, and they don't really hold much power.
Do smear campaigns ever really bother you? Not that you'll react and want to take action, but does it ever bother you inside that you're putting out all this information for people, and there's some people who just want to discredit it, ignore it, just say no, push it aside? Does it ever really?
Well, I'll tell you, Eric, for me personally, it doesn't bother me personally. I'm not. You can call me any name you want. You can say anything you want. People can call me Truvada Horror. People can call me whatever they want. I don't really personally take that in. I don't really have feelings about that. But I do have outrage and anger about people that would try to stop progress.
Yeah.
People that are actively trying to keep the HIV epidemic going at the proportions it's been going in. We actually, as long as I've been working in the field, we've been throwing around slogans like end the epidemic or be the generation or end HIV. We've always had the slogans. We've never had the medicine. Now we have the medicine and the science. And when there's an individual or an organization that's trying to actively impede that and stop people or prevent people or discourage people from using Truvada as PrEP, and maybe it's on moral reasons. Maybe it's because they have a financial stake in keeping people becoming positive for whatever reasons. That pisses me off.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt my feelings if people call me names, but it really angers me when someone or someones would actually try to discourage people, especially young people who are vulnerable to HIV, from understanding what PrEP offers to us and actually being able to access it.
Yeah. If I were in it drives me crazy, and I'm not necessarily somebody who speaks about it all the time. Like when I see anything that's just discrediting, PrEP and all the research and everything, it gets me frustrated, because it's like, why would you, if you have this, why would you try to, discredit it and not get people to, use it? It just makes no sense.
Well, for some, it's religious.
Yeah.
Okay, we still live in a society where anal sex is taboo. The butt is considered dirty. It's considered wrong. It's considered disgraceful, even though a lot of people who believe that actually have anal sex as a way to prevent as birth control.
Yeah.
Right? That's like
True.
Catholic Church. Like if a woman doesn't want to get pregnant, she is sometimes told there's more than one orifice to use. But it's true, but
I heard there was actually like a porn star that was like,
Yeah.
I only do anal because I'm gonna save my vagina for marriage, and I'm like, okay, all right,
yeah, and as
that's
long as that's made with consent.
all right.
But we still live in a society that stigmatizes gay sex, that stigmatizes that is misogynistic, meaning that if you're a bottom like me, they see you as weak or less than. There's still cultures that still sees receiving anal sex as an assault, as something wrong. So we're working with all of that. Then we're working with just the trauma from the AIDS epidemic, which, like I told you, I get it, I understand it, but we need to move through that in order to be conduits for the end of this. But people who still literally, it's post-traumatic stress disorder in their synapses, they cannot separate anal sex from death and trauma. And I totally understand that.
Yeah, I understand that as well.
And then we're dealing with financial. Because there is, up until a few years ago, we had 50,000 new HIV diagnoses in the U.S. every year. And that's a pretty reliable income strain right there.
Exactly.
So as those numbers go down, and they are going down, that's going to mean less income. And I do challenge anyone who's anti-PrEP and anti-prevention to really look at their financial motives for fighting what is inevitably going to be a hit to their organization when we do come to the end of the epidemic.
So something that you had mentioned before that I wanted to talk about as well, you had mentioned being undetectable. What did you want to say about that exactly? Because I have some thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
So this is why. Okay, so I started in this field in 1991, and this is why I'm so excited to be working in this field, like more than ever, because on the prevention side, someone who's HIV negative can take PrEP. On the treatment side, we now understand with full scientific validity, meaning it has been proven now of 5 different studies, 4 different trials. Someone who is living with HIV, someone who's HIV positive, if they have a suppressed or undetectable viral load for a sustained period of 6 months or longer, they cannot humanly transmit HIV to others. They cannot transmit. When you don't have a viral load, you cannot transmit the viral load. Now, the caveat there is that you have to have access to treatment and take it as prescribed. And it's a little uncertain exactly at what point you're untransmittable, but 6 months is the most conservative of those estimates. So we say 6 months or more. But how amazing and exciting is this? That if you're living with HIV and you have a suppressed viral load, and a lot of people living with HIV have had an undetectable viral load for 10 years or more, that you cannot transmit HIV. You are not a danger to your sexual partners. You are not a danger to others. This has been physically, medically, psychologically, and spiritually such a transformative experience for so many people living with HIV who have been taking amazing care of their bodies, but still were being told by the medical profession, you have to worry about infecting others. You're still a danger to others. And now are finally, and much thanks to Bruce Richmond, who is not a doctor, but he's an activist. He's a lawyer activist and was really, really angry as someone living with HIV that no one would give him this information. So he started delivering this through just grassroots social media. Someone living with HIV cannot transmit HIV, and he has gone worldwide getting people to understand this, getting organizations to sign on to his consensus statement, promising that they will only deliver accurate medical advice to their HIV patients and their families and loved ones. And it might seem kind of weird that you have to get someone to agree to do that. You'd think they would just do that, but they're not. They weren't doing that. So Bruce Richmond took this up in 2015. He started what's called the PreventionAccessCampaign.org, so PreventionAccessCampaign.org. And he started for consumers to really understand this. U equals you. U equals you. Undetectable equals untransmittable. And spread that message around the world. So what does that mean? We've got PrEP on the prevention side, which reduces HIV risk by like greater than 99%. We have undetectable as untransmittable, in which there are 0 transmissions ever by someone who is undetectable for 6 months or longer. That's why I think this is so amazing, because what does this mean in terms of the way that we get to end the HIV epidemic, but we can do this in terms of sexual, spiritual, emotional connections, that people who are HIV positive do not have to live in fear of transmitting HIV to others. People who are HIV negative don't have to live in fear of someday getting HIV and can make their sexual and emotional connections based on those facts. it is such a different world from the one I grew up in.
I could imagine.
That's why I like get so charged up about this.
I could imagine. In terms when you talk about prevention, how important, since you were talking about being undetectable, how important is it to also talk to people who are being treated for HIV about prevention? Because sometimes maybe people separate the two. People think, oh, well, prevention's one thing, treatment is the other. But how important is it to make sure that people who are being treated know exactly about, HIV prevention, being undetectable, all that stuff?
You mean about PrEP or about undetectable? Like what it means to be undetectable?
What it means to, like, if you do have HIV,
Yeah.
how important is it to educate people with HIV on, prevention methods and, for themselves being undetectable so that, they don't spread it and that other people don't acquire it from them?
It is, I think, of the utmost essential importance that people living with HIV are given adequate facts, rational, medical, data-driven facts. And unfortunately, most people in the world living with HIV are not being given medical, data-driven facts. They're still being given the old line of like, well, you're still a potential danger to others, even though you've been undetectable for over 10 years. Yeah. It is so important because not only does that mean that somebody who is living with HIV, especially with today's meds, can live a long life, can have a quality and quantity of life that is meaningful and purpose-filled and pleasure-filled. But it also helps them to understand that not only are they doing something so important for their body, but they're literally preventing HIV at the same time. So another slogan we use is treatment as prevention. Okay. So otherwise known as TASP. Treatment as prevention. Because when you're treating HIV...
There's a lot of abbreviations.
It's a lot of abbreviations. But when you're treating HIV, you are literally preventing HIV at the same time. Now, if someone doesn't know that information, if a young person who is at risk of HIV is never given this information and only thinks of HIV as a chronic death thing, how likely are they going to want to go to their clinic and get tested and find out what their HIV status is? So the more education we do and the more facts we give people, the more likely we are to get people HIV tested. And this actually was Governor Cuomo's plan that started here in the state of New York in 2014, was his plan to end the epidemic, is that we do as much testing as possible. Testing. If someone's positive, we help them stay in treatment and get access to treatment. If someone's negative, we evaluate and see and help them get access to PrEP. But it's this three-prong approach to ending HIV in New York that has led us to the numbers, and it seems like we're on track to end HIV by 2020. And that's Governor Cuomo's plan.
Oh, that's great.
But it begins with testing, and that's why all this information is out there, and that's why I speak, and why so many people are being out and open about both either their use of PrEP or TASP to say, look, we feel good about our decisions, we feel strong and celebratory, we feel like we're doing good things for ourselves, good things for our communities and our sexual partners, and you can be part of that.
Yeah. It's amazing. I wanted to get your opinion on this before we end. I've been following some stuff in the adult entertainment world about HIV and testing protocols and everything like that. And I wanted to get your opinion on what you think PrEP, if at all, if it does change, the adult entertainment world, because there's some people who are nervous in the adult entertainment world about being a performer and performing potentially with somebody who, has HIV, and they've been told, oh, take PrEP or whatever. There's some performers who are like, oh, hey, see you, TT. So there are some performers who are nervous about being in. Sorry, I got thrown off for a second. There's some performers who are nervous that even taking PrEP, they're still at risk for getting HIV. How would you get through to somebody in that world, I guess, and tell them? How would you explain that to them? Because there are a lot of people who I think aren't really educated on it. And I feel like it's almost like, it's weird. It's like they're almost resistant to getting educated on it because they want to keep their sense. We don't want to work with HIV, performers. Granted, they don't necessarily know who is and who isn't, but how would you educate them? How would you go about that?
Well, First of all, I think no one.
I hope that question wasn't too confusing.
No, well, I don't want anyone to ever feel coerced or pressured into doing anything, into any sexual decisions. I'm a big person who says should. The word should doesn't belong anywhere in this world, but especially not in healthcare, because I don't think anyone should be pressured to make decisions about their sexual health and how they protect their bodies, and feel coerced or pushed into that. And that is just as true for anyone working in the adult industry as anyone else. But what I would say to them is, let's break this down based on facts. Okay, you don't want to go condomless. Let's say a guy decides, I don't want to do receptive anal sex with an HIV positive partner who has been living with HIV and been on treatment for years and years. But I would be willing to do a condomless scene with that guy who I know is HIV negative because, we're on a set where we're doing, antibody rapid testing and that guy over there tested negative 2 minutes ago. So I'll be willing to do a scene with him without condoms, but not the positive guy. Which one of those two people are more likely to transmit HIV?
I would probably say the gentleman who just took the antibody test maybe a couple minutes ago.
Would be more likely.
More likely.
Right. Because antibody tests are not, I don't know exactly how accurate, but they're not totally accurate. There is a window period, and if he had sex last night and got HIV last night, it's not going to show up on an antibody test the next day.
I do think the testing that they do in the adults industry is what is it, RNA?
Do they do RNA? So RNA
I think they do
the best,
RNA
because that is a window period of about 10 to 14 days. But again, there can be a window period, and I'm getting a pointy.
Oh, Trude's pointing.
Okay.
What do we got there?
Oh, so what are we saying here? Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. Okay. So again, that's great.
Thank you, Truett. You're the man.
Thank you, Truett. But there's still a window period with that. So if someone was not on PrEP and they were considering having a condomless scene with someone, they are a lot less, like zero risk of someone who is living with HIV, who has been on treatment for a very long time, than someone who just tested negative on the set 2 weeks ago or within the last 2 weeks. Those are both very small possibilities. But I'd say to someone who's worried about those possibilities, those are really the odds you're looking at if you're trying to make this decision. Now, again, you can just negate all of those questions and all those variables by just taking PrEP yourself. And here's what's also really important. I would tell this person, if you're not regularly sexually active or you're not regularly concerned about HIV, although our CDC does recommend that people take it daily, pretty much everywhere else in the world, we also understand that there is a regimen for using PrEP called the on-demand strategy. That if people aren't...
I did want to ask about that, actually.
That if people aren't sexually active on a regular basis, there's 2 studies. One is called the IPREGAY trial.
Okay.
It came out of France, so IPERGAY.
All right.
And the other was a subset of the IPREGAY study, both of which showed that if people use on-demand dosing, they are still, like, not one seroconversion occurred in these studies when people used the on-demand regimen. And the on-demand regimen goes something like this. Let's say I'm not having a lot of sex, but let's say I'm an adult performer.
Okay.
And I want to have a scene coming up, and for my own peace of mind, I just want to not have to worry about HIV while I'm in the scene. Okay. So let's say that scene is coming up tomorrow.
Okay.
What I would want to do then is now this is assuming I'm a cisgender man who's going to use this for rectal sex. It's different for vaginas. It's different for front hole sex. So I'm just talking about rectal sex right now, or anal sex. In that case, I would take 2 doses of Truvada at the same time, somewhere between 2 to 24 hours before we're going to start filming the scene.
Okay.
So anywhere between 2 to 24 hours before we start filming the scene.
Okay.
2 doses of Truvada. You film the scene, you do the work, hopefully you get it done. You take another dose of Truvada 24 hours after that, and another dose 48 hours after that. So altogether you take 4 doses.
4 doses.
2 before, 2 after. Now, the IPREC study showed us, and they were looking at a group of people who used this regimen versus people who did not use this regimen, that the people who did not use this regimen, some became HIV positive, but the people who used Truvada as this regimen, there was not one single seroconversion. And then they looked at people who were just really using it like once or twice a month. So the average use of Truvada was somewhere between 6 to 9 times a month. And even in that group, there was not one single seroconversion that occurred when people used the on-demand strategy. So that is something else I would say to someone working in the adult industry or somebody who may not be sexually active is like, I don't want to take a pill every day, but I do sometimes, I want to be able to go to Fire Island and fuck like a bunny and not have to worry about it or come back and use PrEP the next day. So it's like, fine, use this strategy.
So one other question, since you're talking about on demand, does sexual activity play into the maybe not quality, the effectiveness of it? So let's say you did the on demand let's say you were going out to a party, let's say you were traveling for the weekend and you were like, oh, I'm going to go to a couple parties, whatever, maybe I'll have sex with somebody, I don't know. So you do the on demand strategy. If you don't have sex or something like that, does that change anything within you, the effectiveness of the drug? So like, let's say, you didn't have sex and then, you didn't have sex for another like 8 months or whatever or something like that. There wouldn't be any change to the effectiveness of it.
So I'm glad you asked that. So no, if someone can start and stop using Truvada, whether they're doing on demand or using daily, it is intended to be used during what we call seasons of risk. That's a term used by one of the researchers in IPREC, Bob Grant. It's intended to be used similar to when a woman would use birth control pills, to be used when you're trying to avoid an unwanted consequence of pleasurable sex without condoms. So you can use it when you're at risk. You do not have to use it when you're not at risk. It's just if someone is like, the on-demand dosing regimen really means you have to be able to plan things pretty well. So if you're someone who is likely or possibly going to have spontaneous sex without planning it, then you'd want to more be on the daily plan. I use the daily plan. So whether I'm sexually active or not, I have that peace of mind. And then if I do have sex or when I do have sex, I don't even have to think about it. I know I'm on the daily plan. I know I have that protection built up. But again, if someone's just going to use this for an event or a party or a week, let's just say it's like, okay, I'm not using it one time, but I'm going to go to Fire Island and I'm going to be there for a week. And I don't want to worry about HIV during that week. Okay. If it's more than just one event, you do, again, like I said, you start with two doses at the same time, 2 to 24 hours, and then you just keep taking it daily when you could be at risk of being exposed to detectable levels of HIV. You take it daily, and then when you're done, you take one dose 24 hours later, another dose 48 hours later. Now, again, all of this is for cisgender men for rectal sex, insertive or receptive rectal sex. People with vaginas or front hole sex can't use, or at least we don't know, we don't have any data or research to show how well the on-demand strategy works for vaginas. And the reason we have to be careful about that is because we do have reason to believe that the drug builds up differently in the vaginal tissues than it does in the rectal tissues. So there is a difference there. And we still need to understand what those differences are. But right now we don't really understand them. So we want to make sure anyone who's watching this, if they have a vagina or they want to use this for vaginal sex, don't use on demand. That's really important to use daily for that.
Gotcha.
Now, that being said, there are women that are using PrEP. PrEP is indicated for women. And my Facebook group called PrEP Facts, Rethinking HIV Prevention and Sex, we have women on there.
Go to the Facebook group.
Yeah. Go to the Facebook group. We have women on there who talk about using PrEP to conceive babies. To conceive children naturally with an HIV-positive husband or partner.
Oh, wow.
And I think people don't always, when we're talking about butt sex, we're talking about, slutty gay guys like me. We kind of forget that there's also some really beautiful practical outcomes of using PrEP. One of which is that a woman can conceive naturally with her HIV-positive partner. Whereas it used to be that if she wanted to do that, they'd have to go through a very extensive and expensive sperm washing process. And it didn't always even work that well. I mean, there was still like a chance she wouldn't be able to conceive. Thanks to PrEP as well as U equals U, now a woman can choose to conceive a child with a partner who is HIV positive.
Wow.
And PrEP offers that choice now. But again, for a woman using this for vaginal sex, please do it every day.
Okay. And then if you've taken it every day for a good amount of time. Like you've taken it for almost 7 years now.
Yeah.
If let's say you decided I'm done taking it every day. I mean, I don't think you'd be that person, but let's say you made the choice to not take it every day anymore and you said, well, I think the on-demand is pretty appealing to me. Does taking it for that long daily, does that change anything in regards?
No, and here's the reason. I think what you're thinking is like, do we become more resistant to it over time? And the thing about resistance is important to remember is that drugs don't become resistant, viruses become resistant. So someone who has a virus has to be concerned about their virus becoming resistant to these treatment meds. Now, with the current meds, if someone's taking their medication every day, there's not a lot of reason to think resistance will build up. But if someone is living with HIV and they have the virus and they take the meds inconsistently, or they stop taking it, that's where we would worry about Truvada having diminished efficacy over time, because it's possible their virus can build resistance and immunity to Truvada or any HIV medication that they were taking if they stop taking their meds. So that's why it's really, really important that if people are living with HIV, that they take their meds the way their prescriber is telling them to take it. But if someone doesn't have the virus in their system, there's nothing for the drug to become resistant to.
Okay. And how does it work with other medications? Like if, let's say, taking a medication for something, how does it work with that?
There's not really many. There's really no contraindications or conflicts with other medications. The only concern, and again, this is part of the medical protocol, is that people using PrEP are seeing their doctors regularly, and at least twice a year, their doctor's checking their kidney functioning. And the reason for that is because one of the medications called tenofovir in Truvada can impact kidney functioning. So that's really what doctors are keeping their eye on when you use Truvada. And as long as you don't have a kidney condition or you're not taking other medicines that gravely impact the kidneys, it's really not so people can use Truvada with psychiatric meds. They can use it with blood pressure meds, cholesterol meds. They can even use it with recreational drugs. They can use it with crystal meth. I'm not recommending crystal meth, but I'm saying there's no conflict there.
We don't recommend that.
I don't recommend it, but I'm saying if people are using crystal meth, PrEP is really important for them to know about. And if they do use crystal meth and Truvada, their body's not going to have an adverse reaction to that. So again, all of these decisions, we want to have that be with a responsible, informed provider. But it's also important because a lot of providers still don't know about PrEP. So it's important people who are considering PrEP know that really the only thing that's of grave concern here, and it's not even that grave a concern, is kidney functioning. So Dr. Bob Grant recommends, he says he's seen in the 6 years since Truvada was approved, plus the trials that he was involved with going back to 2007, he's really only seen about 1 in 200 people whose renal functioning or kidney functioning has changed while using Truvada for PrEP. And in every single one of those cases, a doctor has noticed, oh, hey, your kidney functioning is changing. Stop using Truvada. And in every single one of those cases, the kidney functioning went back to normal. So there are no reported cases. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you, my Eric.
Whoa.
Bless you.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
There's no known cases of people having irreparable kidney damage from using Truvada for PrEP. And actually, what I just learned recently, what Dr. Grant just told me a few weeks ago, was that so far the only cases we know of anyone whose kidney functioning has changed on PrEP have all been men over 40. So far we haven't even seen with younger people that these changes have happened. But nevertheless, the doctors, if they're following CDC protocol, they're going to keep their eye on that, and that's good. That is a really good thing.
It is very good. So we're about to wrap up soon.
Okay. I want to say one more thing, though. So, like, again, because I'm so excited about PrEP and U equals U, and what the question I'm asking and asking to the community and asking anyone who's willing to ask this question and listen is, now that we know and have the validity and scientific validity to understand these biomedical interventions, which PrEP and TASP, we have a way to use biomedical interventions to prevent HIV and treat HIV. Cool, great. Now, can we think about looking at some other issues in our community that are troubling us, that are plaguing us, such as the epidemic of smoking, specifically in the GLBT community?
I was just about to bring that up with you, actually.
This is something I've been concerned about, something I've just recently learned more about, that the CDC says on their website that we have 30,000 LGBT-related tobacco deaths every single year, just in the U.S. And if you compare and contrast, the amount of AIDS-related deaths in this country is now down to about 12,000. So more than double the amount of people in this country are estimated are going to die this year from tobacco over HIV and AIDS. And where is the outrage and where's the passion, the petitions about that? You know, so I'm concerned about that. The other thing we know is that if someone's living with HIV and they smoke traditional cigarettes, combustible cigarettes, and I'm going to explain what that is in a second, they are now statistically much higher risks for lung cancer, throat cancer, cardiovascular disease than someone who is not living with HIV. That someone who has HIV and smokes is now at far more risk of dying from smoking than they are from dying of HIV-related causes. So this is something we need to talk about. This is something that we can talk about. And I think we have this opportunity here because of U equals U and PrEP. We have so many people now that are thinking differently about their health and differently about their life expectancy and the quality of their life that I really want us to think about smoking in the same way. Again, similar to HIV, we've started to bring down this epidemic. We started to get ahead of HIV by starting to give people choices and options. Condoms are an option, but so is PrEP, and so is TASP. And you can mix and match these different options in various ways. These are all options we didn't have before. Similar to smoking, most doctors, if you talk to a doctor about smoking, they're just going to say, you got to quit. You should quit, which is a word I hate. You know, they're just going to talk about quitting. They're not going to talk about harm reduction. We have abilities now to reduce the harm from smoking if someone has tried and they can't stop. And a lot of people I know living with HIV have tried and can't stop smoking. Something, for example, like electronic cigarettes or vaping is shown to be a lot less harmful, not zero, but a lot less harmful than smoking cigarettes. Because when you just take nicotine as a drug by itself and you remove the tars and the tobacco and the carcinogens that are so present in cigarettes, you take all those things out and you just find ways for people to get nicotine, that's where there's opportunities for people to satisfy drug cravings in ways that are much, much less harmful. And vaping is one of the means by which a lot of people are starting to do that. So some people will use vaping to quit nicotine altogether. Some people are never going to quit using nicotine.
I've noticed a lot more vaping, to be honest.
So if you go to Public Health England and their government website, they're going to show you the science and the data that shows that it's 95% less harmful to vape over smoking. But in this country, it's like I talk about that now and I get that like you look like you're an alien with four horns coming out of your head the way I used to do with PrEP. I think and I hope with vaping and with harm reduction, nicotine harm reduction, we'll be having more of these conversations and it'll become more normalized the way PrEP and U equals U is now, but wasn't a few years ago. But I really, really, really hope and want people to begin these conversations because why are we doing all this amazing work if we're just going to lose people again to a preventable disease? There has to be a better way. There has to be a new way. And there is. Again, we have the medicine and the technology to get a hold on this, to change this. So we can apply the tools to smoking as we have with HIV, or at least I think we can. That's my theory. That's the idea I'm floating out there and really want people to have conversations and discourse about that.
Conversations are extremely important, you know, in anything, especially this topic. You know, people need the information. They really do. I think there are a lot of people who don't get the information. And, you know, if it wasn't for people like you, they wouldn't know anything about this.
People like you, because you're giving me a long chance to yammer on about all these things and flail my hands around. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's an important topic. When Truitt said he knew you, I was like, I have to have him on the show.
No, okay.
I know, right? Who is that guy?
I love Dr. V.
Who is that weird guy? I think he's sitting over there, actually. He's like looking at us now all weird. But yes, you were an amazing guest.
Well, thank you.
It's an amazing show. A lot of amazing information and Truitt is telling us 2 books. Do you want?
Well, so I would just say that I have written 2 books. They were written before the PrEP thing came around, so they were more about the work I do as a therapist. But one is called Absolutely Shouldless, about living in a world without shoulds, and it was based partly on working in prevention organizations that were telling people they should use condoms when they weren't using condoms, and how much that alienates and insults people to be told they should be doing something that they're not doing. And the other is called Rational Relating. And rational relating is a framework for having relationships that are conduits for serenity and joy and pleasure It's based on many, many years of working with couples, specifically polyamorous and open couples here in New York City and in California. And it's helping people, whether they're in monogamous or poly or open or undefined coupleship, to just create agreements and negotiations that are based in compassion and integrity and responsibility and compromise. And those are both available at DamonLJacobs.com.
Excellent. So everybody, DamonLJacobs.com, go there, get the
But
books.
don't forget the L.
Yes, don't
Damon
forget the
Jacobs
L. Remember that.
Is somebody else.
Yes, remember that. You'll get some weird Google search results if you look up the wrong name.
Actually, you know what's like cool about Google now? It's like if you do Damon Jacobs, I come up, but like 10 years ago, it was the other Damon Jacobs. So it was like, but I feel like successful now. Because now I'm the one who's actually does come up in a Damon Jacobs.
Unfortunately, I'm not at that point where we're going to get there eventually, where I'll come up first. But Damon, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Before we head out, actually, where can we find you? Social media, websites, everything. Go ahead, give that to the people one last time.
So, DavidLJacobs.com. And then for anyone who's on Facebook who is interested in learning more about PrEP or finding out what people all around the world are feeling and thinking and practicing around PrEP and U=U, I'd encourage them to visit PrEP Facts. FACTS, PrEP Facts, Rethinking HIV Prevention and Sex on Facebook. It's a closed group, but anyone can join. We just had to close it because we had some nasty people coming on there when it was an open group. So PrEP Facts, Rethinking HIV Prevention and Sex. We have more than 20,800 members worldwide. And people every day. And it's not just people talking about PrEP. We have doctors and researchers on there and practitioners who answer questions about PrEP. And the only rule we have, really the only golden standard, is people have to respect each other and give fact-based, empirically driven information. You can't lie to people. Unlike a lot of other social media sites, you can't just bullshit people. It's okay people don't know things, and it's okay people make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time.
Yes, we all make mistakes.
But if you're going to actually say, this is absolutely the truth. If you're going to say, if you use PrEP, your kidneys are going to rot and fall out.
Yeah, don't do that, people.
With evidence and facts.
Yeah.
And some people love that and some people don't. So this is
just facts, people.
Yeah.
Let's go. But yeah, Damon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate having you on. And guys, you could go, like I said, we have a bunch of social medias, but just pretty much go to the Instagram for right now. That's what we update the most. So LAWESHOWSM. I'm going to get the Twitter going. We're going to get that going. Other ones, I don't know. We'll figure those out.
I always forget about Twitter. It's like, I have it, but I kind of forget about it.
I read other people's stuff on Twitter. I rarely, like, if you look at, like, my personal Twitter, it's, like, all, like, animal stuff and... I like retweet a bunch of animal things and whatnot. So, yeah, I kind of Instagram is like my favorite, really. Pictures.
Just recently started on that, but I kind of forget about that too. Instagram. But recently, so yeah, I'm on
we
Instagram
all have our
well.
favorites.
Yeah,
you know.
I like Facebook because you can talk, like really have conversations.
Facebook is not my favorite, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
I've kind of fallen out of.
A lot of people are not
favorite,
hot on Facebook, and I understand why. Yeah.
It is what it is, but. Guys, go to the Instagram. That's where you can find us, you know, the most active, I guess. LAWESHOWSM. There we go. Would have been, somebody pointed out, it would have been a little less complicated, but I couldn't just get LAWE. So,
so what does all that say?
LAWE show SM.
Oh, okay.
So SM is for social media.
Gotcha.
So,
love it.
You know, that's what that is. And then the YouTube page, Life and Whatever Else, no spaces. Life and Whatever Else, no spaces. Look for us on YouTube there. Watch these videos. You know, watch our interviews, shows, everything else. There's going to be a lot of new things coming up this summer. So go and check that out. And, guys, thank you for watching, listening, whatever you guys are doing. Appreciate it. Appreciate all your support. We're out of here. Peace.
Thank you. Yay. Thank you.